Started last night but bled into this morning. Emphasis on bled. My 38-week pregnant wife had her routine checkup yesterday where her doctor told her she was 4 centimeters dilated and to expect the baby within the next few days. Then last night she started experiencing contractions, but they were relatively mild, easy for me to say, and 15 to 20 minutes apart. We made the decision to sleep on it and track the contractions through the night, likely going to the hospital in the morning as everything we read was to not go to the hospital until contractions were closer. Fast forward to 2 a.m. and my wife frantically yelling at me that her water had just broken, the baby's head was coming out. Not believing her, I took a peek and sure enough the head was crowning. A quick call to 911 and within 10 minutes my daughter had emerged and was lying in a pool of blood on the bathroom floor. While comforting my wife and making sure the baby was breathing, I looked up to see that my 4-year-old son had woken up and was taking in the scene. Happy ending to the story that mom and baby doing well and my son seems to be okay and that he didn't really understand what was going on and was just happy to meet his baby sister. We'll never forget your quick entrance to the world, Madeline Rose. TLDR, my wife gave birth unplanned on our bathroom floor, largely with my son watching, possibly scarring him for life. ETA some clarifying details. Madeline is our third child. We also have a nearly 2-year-old daughter who slept through the ordeal. First 2 births were scheduled inductions later than 38 weeks, so no experience with the timings of when we need to go to the hospital. And not believing her was a little hyperbolic. Obviously my wife knows her body best, hence trusting her intuition to not go to the hospital the night before, but the suddenness of being woken up with the situation left me a little surprised. Mom and baby still doing great after 24 hours of life and my son doesn't seem at all fazed by the situation. He's just thrilled to formally meet his sister later today. Thanks for all the kind words. A few weeks ago I was visiting my local big box bookstore, looking for good clearance items before the store closed permanently. The dead mall it was attached to is being demolished. The store has no dress code but the employees do wear lanyards, and I wasn't. So I was browsing around my preferred sci-fi section when I realized I needed to use the nearby restroom. So I headed in that direction, which happened to also be next to the mid-store customer service counter. Karen notices me, positions herself directly in front of me, and blocking my path to my urinary destination. "I don't know why you don't keep the desk staffed, but I really need your help finding my book. Are you going to help me or not?" "Not," I say, remembering the urgency of my business, and I step around her with a variation of "I don't work here," continuing to my destination, thinking that will be the end of the encounter. It's not to be. I hear her voice rising in pitch and volume, on its way to full Karen Banshee as she literally follows me into the men's room, and I'm convinced she was about to grab my arm and pull me around to face her. Being conscious of social norms about public exposure, I made it into a stall and locked the door for privacy. That didn't stop her from knocking on the door and threatening to get me fired, before she heard the really solid stream hit the water and, I'm convinced, realized for the first time what it was she had done. I heard her embarrassed-sounding squeak/huff, and she hightailed it out of there. I finished my thing and washed my hands, and came out to witness her being escorted out of the store by a properly lanyarded employee. I only caught the tail end of the conversation where Karen stated she was never coming here again. And the employee had a classic response, "Neither am I. We're closing." First, a little backstory. I work as a delivery driver for a store. People order groceries and the store collects them and I deliver them. We have 5 cars driving on a typical day and every car has a freezer and a cooling unit on the roof. When people order they can add a message to the driver. Today I had a customer and I got the feeling he is a giant a-hole from the way he complained in the message that the food wasn't cold enough last time. Our cars stay around 4 to 7 degrees Celsius. The customer stated that everything that is cold has to go to the freezer. So, in the freezer they went, minus 20 degrees Celsius. At this point I should mention that he was the last delivery. His food was in the freezer for 1,5 hours. When I arrived at his house I checked if the items were frozen. Yes they were. Milks weren't fully frozen but enough that you couldn't drink them. I started to know the bags on his door. He asked why 3 of the grocery bags were cold. I told him that he asked them to be in the freezer. I was right the whole time, he was and probably still is. An a-hole. Then he just starts ranting about I should know what he meant and swearing pretty much. I showed him the printed receipt that stated that every item that has to be cool I have to put them in the freezer. I thanked him and told have a good day with the biggest smile I could. He let out a little grunt and closed the door. I could hear him swearing through the door. Then I gleefully walked to my car and went back to the store. He had already called there and complained. The worker who answered the phone told him the same thing I said. You asked for it and you got it, what is the problem? If he hasn't been so rude in the message, I would have just put his stuff in the back and make sure they are as cold as possible. For those of you who think this was a little extreme, the message contained only very rude orders and slandering of my colleague. TL Dr. Rude customer is rude and gets frozen milk, eggs and cheese like he asked for. Sorry for possible broken English. Not a native language to me. Edited a little for clarity. Also, I'm on mobile, you know the drill. Me, thank you for calling tech support, how can I help you? Her in an extremely holier than thou tone, I need you to unlock my account. This is the 5th time I have called about this and all you can do is unlock it and it keeps getting locked. I don't understand why this is happening and why you can't help me. I could see she called in 4 to 5 times over the last few days. Me, okay. I see you've called in about this before. I've already unlocked your account. Do you have a few minutes to look into why your account is being locked? Her. No. I know you can't help me. I've called in. Me, interrupting her, you know nothing of the sort. You've never talked to me before. I'll ask you again, do you want me to find out why it's being locked out? Her. No. I know you can't help me. I've called in 5 times already. I don't want to call in again. Me, I can't help you if you won't let me. Since you're refusing my help, I can't guarantee that you won't have to call in again. Your account is unlocked though. Is there anything else? Her. No. Have a nice day. Click. Me, okay. First off, this happened several years ago when I was like 9, and also keep in mind that I was a very stupid child and I could probably write a dozen of these things about stories of stupid things I did when I was younger, like the time I ate a dog tick. Anyway, for Christmas one year, my family got me a cat, and I absolutely loved this cat. I would sleep with it every night, hold it, and brush it all the time. Well, I liked this cat so much that when my birthday came around and I got a cake, that when I blew out the candles I wished to become a cat. Well, a few months go by, and I see no signs of turning into a cat and I was disappointed. I never quit hoping that it would happen, but I was beginning to give up my hope. Well, one day my luck changed when I noticed that a hair was starting to grow out of my body, and I obviously took it as a sign of my transitioning. As more time passed, I noticed that the hair was getting longer and longer and that I was getting closer and closer to becoming a cat. After this was happening for a little while, I knew that it was time for me to start telling people that I loved and was going to miss them as I would soon be a cat. I would take my parents' phone and call my grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc. and tell them that I loved and was going to miss them. At first, my parents didn't think much of it, but after I did it several times they decided that they needed to have a talk with me about what was going on. So they sat me down and asked me why I was calling everyone I knew, and so I just told them that I'm about to go away and wouldn't be able to tell them that anymore. At this point they were worried, so they kept on pressing to figure out what was going on. I finally told them that on my birthday I wished to become a cat. Then I went on to tell them that I was beginning to grow hair and it was only a couple of weeks until I was fully transitioned. They burst out laughing and told me that I'm not actually turning into a cat, but that I was going through puberty. I was forced to sit through the talk at that point, but the worst part was that I wasn't really becoming a cat. I was absolutely devastated and spent the remainder of the day crying in my room with my cat. DL, doctor, wished to become a cat, started puberty, and cried. Edit, after popular request, here's the story of the time I ate a dog tick. Here I am trying to be finally retired and I get an email from a past client I can't see the video at my business. Help. So I finally agree to stop by and see what I can do to help. Now their system was put in almost 2 years ago and no complaints or issues until this week. I know the client is an Apple fan and all their kit is Mac. I also know that with the recent iOS update the viewing program is busted, so I'm thinking, hoping, that that's the issue and I can run away. I get on site and get some more info. I can see my home system okay, just not the business. FYI, this is a personal services type of business and they have been closed until last weekish for COVID. After some poking about, I can see video locally, but the internet ports are closed and the WAN IP looks a bit odd for the ISP. Check the router and it's set up properly for port forwarding. I asked the client if there were any changes to their internet. Nope, say them, no changes. Time to call the ISP. In the course of verifying the account, the CSR says this account is not active. It was set to hold back in March, when the business was shut for COVID. End of the story. Account was reactivated, WAN IP was their static IP and the ports were open. Client was a chagrined, oh, I kinda remember doing that, but since I was still able to check email I thought the ISP didn't put the hold on the account. ISP out the goodness of their hearts allowed business accounts to get/send email on their accounts that were suspended pending reopening after isolation times. So this'll be fairly short because there's not really a lot of stuff to go over. This happened a while ago. I can't remember how old I was, but I was old enough to believe that sharing is caring. I asked my mom for some chips because I was hungry and she told me to get my own. So I obviously threw a fit because the chips she was eating were my favorite and there were no more. A few minutes later I told her I was going to make myself a sandwich, and she asked me to make one for her as well. Being the petty person I am, I put on a fake smile and said sure. I head into the kitchen and I made my sandwich first, a perfectly toasted ham and lettuce sandwich with light mayo. Then I got to work on my mom's. I took the 2 end slices out of the bag and placed them on a napkin. I gabbed some mayo and absolutely obliterated the slices with it. I put a single half slice of ham and precisely 2 pieces of shredded lettuce before handing it to my mom. She looked at it once and started laughing and asked, "Why'd you make it like this?" To which I answered, "You didn't share." And #X200B. DL, Doctor, Mom refuses communism and as punishment, gets end slice, mayo bombed sandwich. I travel quite a bit, mostly for work. To save money here and there I find it a lot cheaper to order to my hotel rather than go to local restaurants every night. That's what the weekends are for, right? I haven't had this pizza chain in a couple years but I really enjoy their barbecue chicken one. So I'm eager to have one of my favorites. Hotel Wi-Fi really sucks. After fiddling around, making an account, I finally get the order through. Pizza Med, barbecued chicken. Chicken Alfredo pasta. Can of cola. Easy, right? So you'd think. And #X200B. Online tracker says store has received my order and I can track its progress. Jeff is currently making my pizza. Liza has taken my pizza out of the oven. Sam is on his way with my pizza. I'll meet Sam outside since I wanted to have a quick smoke anyway. Meet Sam. Tip him $5 for his delivery. Take the bag of food. Go back up to my room. And #X200B. Pizza was good, no complaints there. Ate half, save the other half for my breakfast tomorrow morning. Open up the pasta. Stare at it for a moment. Looks off. Oh. There's no chicken in it. So I have pasta with Alfredo sauce. Whatever, it's nearly 8 p.m. I need to go to sleep soon. The only thing I can really do is laugh it off. I was there for nearly a month, at the end of my time there decided to try again. Med pizza, barbecued chicken. Cheesy bread bowl pasta. Can of cola. And #X200B. And #X200B. Same deal, I'll meet them outside and smoke while I'm waiting. Car shows up with the pizza logo on top. Guy gets out as I stand up to greet him and pay for my food. As the delivery guy steps out he asks, "Quakes 19? Yep, that's me. Yeah, I forgot a couple things on your order. I'll have to go back to the store real quick." Proceeds to get back in his car, and take off up the road, and continue his rounds. Close to 20 minutes later he returns, with all my food, mostly cold. He apologizes and I pay what I owe. I'm not going to sit on the phone for 20 to 30 minutes explaining what has happened to me and try to get 10 off or a free pizza deal. There is none of these pizza chains near where I live. So getting some sort of IOU deal from them would be pointless. I really just hope that it was a bad experience at a particular area, perhaps understaffed or not trained as well. And #X200B. DLDR, went somewhere far from home for work, was there for about a month, ordered pizza from a chain restaurant online twice, got my order messed up once and the second time they left the store with half of my food. Long-time lurker, first-time poster. I've been debating for a long time if I wanted to share some stories about my former best friend. With quarantine and whatnot, I've had a lot of time to remember a decent amount of her biggest moments, get it? They're big because she's fat, but I'll start with a shortish one. If you folks enjoy it, I may post more. TBD. For the sake of my former friend's privacy, let's call her Kelly. Kelly was, without a doubt, the largest friend I've ever had. In fact, there's a fair chance she's the largest person I've ever known. Kelly stood at about roughly 5.5 feet, and was shaped like a globe. She rarely showered, was covered in Harry Potter tattoos, she was also planning to get one of her cat right before we had our falling out, and had the most obnoxious know-it-all Tumblr-informed worldview imaginable. Remember Tumblr? That was still a thing back then. Anyway, It was a hot summer day, and Kelly was over my parents for a barbecue. I can't remember exactly what got her going, but someone said something entirely inoffensive and unrelated to weight, yet managed to propel Kelly into one of her lengthy rants about fat phobia. To be fair, a good deal of her points were very valid, but they had absolutely no context in the formally light conversation. As she went on and on, everyone became increasingly silent, and progressively more uncomfortable. She knew she had a captive audience, and she intended to use it. After about 20 minutes, I got up to use the restroom, desperately hoping she would be done by the time I got back. However, when I returned, there was Kelly bemoaning how impossible it is to lose weight, while tightly clutching a cheeseburger in each hand. My brother and I instantly looked at each other, and it took every last bit of humanly restraint to refrain from bursting out into laughter. Somehow we managed, but to this day, I have no idea how. Later that night, after Kelly stuffed herself behind the driver's seat of her car to return home, my brother and I had a chat while cleaning up the aftermath of the day's festivities. "Boy, Kelly sure was a downer, huh?" he said. "Yeah, tell me about it." "But she means well," I replied, making a half-assed attempt to stick up for a friend I was thoroughly tired of by that point. "Did you look at her chair?" he asked, motioning toward the seat she had packed herself into for the majority of the day. "The legs were bent. Badly. She's lucky she didn't break the darn chair and fall on her ass," my father yelled from behind the screen door. Jesus. So, we are in lockdown telework mode. As I am responsible for tape backups/storage, I have been coming into the office while my colleague has been working from home. Last week he called me. "Hey, big dummy, do you think you can do me a little favor? Dr. Snugglebum called me today and said that she keeps getting a no-signal error on her monitor. Can you put a VGA or DP cable on her desk? I told her we could hook her up with that because I think her cable is bad." "Sure," I say. "I'll put one of each on her desk so that she can be sure to get a good connection." That day, I put the cables on Dr. Snugglebum's desk. She came to my office and asked me where they get plugged in. I turned a spare PC around and showed her the ports, advising that only one cable needed to be plugged in. She seemed to understand. Today Dr. Snugglebum's supervisor emails me, with a read receipt and ceasing my soup and the branch director. "Hi, big dummy. Snugglebum is still having the same issue with her monitor. It keeps showing a no-signal error and she has to turn her computer off and back on to get the monitor working again. She has already tried the replacement cables and nothing has helped. Can you help her? It's got the error up now. Short of bringing the whole setup in, I'm not sure what I can do." I called Dr. Snugglebum. "Well, what happens exactly?" "I was at lunch yesterday, just looking at the blue screen and it just suddenly went to no signal. Same thing happened when I was on the phone with the help desk for a different reason. Also, I tried turning the monitor off a couple times for between 2 and 5 minutes and when I turned it back on it always worked just fine." "Oh, snap. So, Doc, do me a favor. Move your mouse." "Oh, you're a genius. I can't believe that worked. Is that all it ever was?" I then explained power settings and that our monitors are set to turn off after 15 minutes of inactivity. Email her soup, no read receipt, branch director, and my soup and let them know that the situation has been resolved. In response, I got a thanks and a gif of Robert Downey Jr., face palming. TL Doctor at the beginning, corporate guy wants me to start sifting through the lot trash as I bring it in so he can see what's setting the scanner off, so I sort through all of it, even the 3-day-old maggot files. Alrighty, so. I'm a janitor at a big blue chain grocery store, and part of my daily routine is to check the parking lot trash cans for trash, and bring in any full bags in this big gray tote cart on wheels, and it comes through the front doors. The back doors are either too small or raised off the ground for semis, so those aren't options, as well as the compactor we use is inside. Like every store, we have large metal detectors that beep and buzz if a stolen item still has its refund tag, or if a store phone is accidentally taken out in a pocket. Being a don't act, just watch store, as well as having parking lot pickup for stuff, a lot of these active chips end up in the trash. So, when my cart passes through those detectors going inside, they almost always go off, and get ignored as I'm clearly not walking out with the stuff. Cut to the morning of the day I'm making this post, and corporate is there. You know the type. Big. Mean. Stickler for the rules, as you should be. He hears the beeping, sees the card and demands that I remove the offending items so it can be scanned out. Now, company policy is to just leave stuff like this, that's beyond salvage or donation, as the budget has wiggle room for lost items anyways. But no, Corporate insists that I get it out, right there, in the store lobby. So I open the lid of the cart. Now, anyone who's ever made trash knows that the longer it sits and the hotter it is, the more maggots pile up. This trash had been out there for the 2 days I had off and no one did it, and it's currently the warm and wet season where I live. I'll spare you the details, but when Corporate saw the white shag carpeting that was the circle of life coating the bottom of that cart from where a bag busted, well, I don't think he would have made me do it. But I pulled up my rubber gloves, found a lost item, some Advil package with the security device still on it, and held it out to him. He told me that he'll just find the item number and mark it that way. Was it worth it, sticking my hands in that again, in the middle of all this in the world? You bet it was. After popular request from my last post, I've decided to tell this story as well. Just as a reminder, this happened many years ago when I was like 4, and that I was a very stupid child. For background, I lived in a house that was kinda out of town, and it was completely surrounded by woods. My family had a lab called Mocha, and he was mostly an outside dog. This was good as we had enough land for him to run and play in the yard, but he would also go into the woods a lot. Every once in a while, Mocha would come inside, make a lap around the house, then go back outside. Well, one day 4-year-old me was walking around the house, and I found what I thought was a huge gray blueberry lying on the floor. The genius child that I was thought score. Free blueberry, and shoved the thing into my mouth without questioning what it might really be. Upon crunching down on the fruit, I felt a squirt of juice violently shoot through my mouth and hit my cheek. I thought to myself that it was strange for the blueberry to be so juicy and warm, but I kept on going. The second chew is when I decided that this blueberry must be rotten or something, but this didn't stop me from spitting it out. The third chew is when I noticed the taste. It was unlike any blueberry I've ever eaten before, and even for a rotten blueberry it tasted bad. I can't fully describe what it tasted like, but imagine a mixture of mold and blood. Instead of spitting out the obviously rotten or worse fruit, I made a fourth chew. This is when I began to realize that the blueberry is not a blueberry at all. I had the absolute worst taste in my mouth, and I also began to notice a plasticine bubble sitting in my mouth. In the middle of the floor, I just started to spit everywhere. At this point, my mom noticed that something was wrong, and she became very worried that I hurt myself. She noticed that I was spitting out blood, but then I spit out the shell of a popped dog tick. I kept on spitting up tick blood for several minutes, and the taste of the inside of a tick stayed in my mouth for hours after the incident. My mom deducted that Mocha must have walked inside, and a tick fell off him. I picked the tick up and popped it in my mouth, then started chewing it. Miraculously, I didn't get sick, and I learned that eating ticks on the floor is probably a bad idea. For reference, this is what the tick I ate looked like, but mine was much larger and fatter. DL, doctor, ticks aren't friends or food. This happened years ago, but I was inspired to post this after browsing this sub all evening. My mom had just got a new model of phone, which was the same as my dad's. She received a call from a phone scammer, I think it was the Talk scam, and she couldn't figure out how to hang up, so she gave my dad her phone to show her how. Inexplicably, instead of hanging up, my dad whistled a tune down the phone. After a second's silence, the scammer whistled the tune back. My mom and I were rolling on the floor laughing. Dad may have only wasted a few seconds of the scammer's time, but my family still laugh at the memory. Yesterday morning. Hey, so while I've got you, I am unable to call my client. Can you help? Me, uh-oh. Yeah, sure I can help. What happens when you try to call them? It doesn't ring. Once I tried to call her and I waited for 2 or 3 minutes, then it rang only once and hung up on me. Me, 2 or 3 minutes, yikes. Are you having trouble calling any other clients? Or just her? Just her. Me, seems like a problem with her line then. Are you able to call her from your cell phone? Let me try. Same thing. It doesn't ring her phone. Me, so yeah, it's definitely something to do with her line. Oh okay. I thought it was some kind of massive IT outage or something. Actually, she did mention she was having issues with her carrier. Do you think that's it? Me, neutral face, yup, almost certainly. You'll have to get her on another line if you need to talk to her on the phone right now. Oh okay. Thanks. And exactly 1 minute later is when I found out about the DDoS attack. So I'll keep this short and sweet. I live in a touristy area and I work overnights in a convenience store that sells hot food. Face masks are required by the state, because of pandemic, but only about 60% of the tourists wear them in the store, and when you say something you get crappy attitude from the drunken rabble, and quite frankly I'm not paid enough to deal with it, and besides I'm wearing a mask, gloves, and I'm behind a plastic shield. The petty revenge. If someone comes up to my register buying chips and aren't wearing a mask, I crumple their chips as I put them in a bag. First post here, writing on desktop. Apologies for any formatting issues. This story isn't particularly dramatic but it did raise eyebrows at the time. CM equals crazy man. This happened a few years back at an office supply store I used to work at. CM walks into the store looking for ink for his printer, pretty standard stuff. I'm checking out another customer at the time, so one of the tech associates meets up with CM and directs him over to the ink aisle to help him find what he needs. CM reveals that he needs Kodak ink, a brand we carry very few packages of as Kodak had long since stopped manufacturing printers. While we do help customers find the ink they need for older printers, we also suggest that they consider purchasing a new one. From what the tech guy told me, CM angrily refused to retire their ancient printer, all while complaining about the price of the Kodak ink we presented him, despite the fact that we also gave him suggestions on more economical, and newer, models. CM comes up to my register and I check him out. He continues to whine about the cost, which gradually turns into a wild rant about how we should instigate a civil war over ink prices. After the transaction is completed, CM drops a bombshell. Your company's CEO better lower the prices, or we'll lower their head. We presumably referring to his imaginary resistance group that he plans to assemble in order to storm the company headquarters. It should be noted that CM did not make any direct threats against me or other employees who were on duty. Not the most exciting story but it did give me a much-needed laugh among the stress I had to deal with on a regular basis back in retail. I was reminded of this by another post, about employees only wearing lanyards. A few years ago I was a total mall rat. Went almost every weekend, bummed around, ate free samples and browsed some shops. One shop I had fallen in love with. It sold a lot of hippie-style cloths, hookahs, and other cool knickknacks. This was the one store I would be sure to visit every day, and would do my best to get something at least every few visits. After a few weeks of coming in all the time I became friends with all the employees. We would chat between sales, and just generally had a good time. Now, this store had zero dress code. They just had to wear cloths that fit the aesthetic of the shop and an employee lanyard. Now this might have been a hippie store but I was, and am, a huge metalhead. The only hippie look about me was my long hair. I was dressed in all black, had a concert tee on, chains and rings, the works. So all the employees are busy helping people when this lady comes up and asks the question we all dread, do you know where this item is? Because I spent so much time there I actually did know. So I tell her follow me, walk her to it, and turn to walk away. That's when she calls sir, I need more help. I turn and smile, I'm sorry ma'am. I don't actually work here, I just spend way too much time here. I need to go now, have a nice day. I was half expecting her to get angry or call me a liar. Instead she lets out a laugh and goes apologized for assuming I was an employee and waited to be helped. Just a heartwarming story where everyone walked away laughing and feeling okay. Long-time lurker, but first poster. Don't know if the format is right. And hashtag X200B. So recently, my sister, her boyfriend and I went to a famous electronics store. Think blue uniforms with yellow sales tag, blue lanyards and black pants. We were perusing the Apple section of the store, her boyfriend and I, and we were just looking at some Apple watches. My sister was somewhere else running around. She came up to us after a long while and asked what we were doing and what we were buying. Mind you, my sister is in a purple and black checkered shirt, with a purple lanyard around her neck, jeans and her coat in her hands. A guy and his wife, with their kid, were also in the same section browsing. He walked up to our table and asked my sister if she could help him with Apple products. She politely told him that she didn't work there and therefore doesn't know anything to be of help to him. She directed him to the nearest blue shirt. He apologized and told her that with the way she came up to us and asked us what we were going to buy that he thought that she worked there. This was pre-pandemic, but I'm kind of a germaphobe anyway. I work in a warehouse and the leadership team uses radios to communicate. Not only did everyone make fun of me for always sanitizing everything in my cubicle at the end of the night, but one manager in particular would always steal my pens and radio. He came in about 2 or 3 hours before me and was always too lazy to walk to his office to get his own. I used the label printer to put my name on it, started using really girly colored pens, and even locked my stuff up at the end of the night to no avail. Every day I would come in, my desk drawer would be broken into, filing cabinet type, so if you really torqued it enough you could break it open, and he thought it was some big joke. Made worse by the fact that I would Lysol everything once I hunted him down and got it back because Mfer never washed his hands either. Well, one day I came down with some sort of cold/flu and suffered through the workday. But this time purposely didn't sanitize anything at the end of the day. Guess who came in feeling like dog shit a couple days later? Wash your hands. And keep them off my chute. Mobile post, sorry. I work for a popular mobile store. I was working alone, open to close the other day. Busy all day, I was stressed and feeling exhausted from the constant retail persona that we all do. I finally got a chance to breathe, sat in the back for a few minutes. An elderly lady meandered in with a thick Italian accent. I thought she was angry about something lol. She needed help getting a popular communication app to be able to keep in contact with her family who is still in Italy. I set it up, showed her how to use it, she wanted some contacts deleted, etc. She was so elated that I had sat with her and showed her everything. We talked about Italy, her family, things she did during the day, how she loves baking. It was enjoyable at least. She came in today, I thought maybe for more help, which was fine, I'm happy to do it. Instead, she hands me a plate and told me that she made me homemade biscotti. A family recipe from her days in Italy. It was so sweet and I felt so appreciated. So sometimes, retail is worth it. And yes, the biscotti is perfect and delicious. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. A regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical TJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee, cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A co-worker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about DJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. Equifax is currently unleashing some epic malicious compliance. After their infamous data breach years ago they are making sure they protect our identities. I log into their online portal to lift my credit freeze, a credit freeze I never would have initiated if it weren't for their negligence years ago leading to the data breach. What a surprise, this website is also broken. It advises I call them. Truthfully, this is how it's always gone, every time I've tried in the past, so I figure I'll spend /10 minutes on the phone with their automated system and get the freeze temporarily lifted. I know the drill. This time I call in, answer their 4 questions to verify my identity, but then I reach a new prompt. As they say, cue the malicious compliance. To further verify my identity I need to answer some brief questions about my credit history. They ask about an auto loan I've taken out. I drive a 23-year-old car. Never had a loan, so I answer them. They ask about a personal loan I took out. Again, never happened, so I answer accordingly. We're sorry we could not verify your identity. Please send us 2 forms of identification or stay on the line to talk to a representative. Obviously I stay on the line, assuming this will all get cleared up. Ha. Cue the malicious compliance. Again /. Agent, asks me 4 questions about my identity. Black Sands, answers them. Agent, how can I help you today sir? Black Sands, hey, I'm just trying to temporarily unfreeze my credit. Agent, we're sorry sir, the automated system says that it can't verify your identity. Please send 2 forms of ID by fax or snail mail. And #X200B. Bravo, Equifax, bravo. You should have been sued into bankruptcy, but instead you've been able to further abuse your power with your own negligence. Nationwide malicious compliance. P.S. I check my credit report regularly. The above loans are not on it. This is either just straight abuse or another instance of gross negligence on their part. First time posting, currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And #X200B. Me, okay, tell me exactly what happened. CLR, yeah, my mom fell in the other room, you know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah she fell and I think she may have hit her head. Me, okay, are you with her now? CLR, well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here. Me, have you gone to check on her yet? CLR, no, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her. Me, can you please go check on the patient? CLR, yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them. Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the EMTs got there, let alone even go look at her. And #X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. This was several years ago. This is my first post here. Hopefully I did this right. I worked for a clothing store that are usually in strip malls, they are no longer around, I was one of the managers. I had seen this girl before and knew she stole every time she came in. She took a bunch of clothes into the fitting room with a friend, so I went into the fitting room next to hers, pulled my feet up and I sat there and could hear her snapping the tags off the clothes. This was a weekday and we didn't have a fitting room attendant. So I run out and have the cashier call the cops. When she comes out she bring 2 items back out and hangs them on a rack. I check the fitting room and grab the pants she put back. The tags to the clothes she is stealing are in the pocket. I wait for her to walk out of the store, then followed her out. The cop was outside waiting, so I point to the girls. The cop stops them and after a few minutes admitted to stealing the clothes. She had put them on then her clothes back on. The cop then has the girls and me go into a fitting room and they have to take off what they were stealing. Each had 3 pair of pants and 4 to 5 shirts under their clothes. As one of the girls is removing the stolen item, she asked me not to press charges because she's trying to get her kid back. Plus, to top it off, the bra and underwear she had on she stole from us before. She and her friend left in cuffs, so I guess at least she got a new set of bracelets. Does anyone else have issues with travelers who aren't guests, and have no intention of buying a room, just walking and heading to the restroom? They don't even ask if they can use it. Then sometimes they go to get coffee again without asking, and walk back out to their vehicles and drive away. I used to work at a smaller hotel for a different chain that was behind an information center. Sometimes people would confuse the hotel for the info center. I'd cow when there was a big sign stating the hotel's name, so I used to credit the scenario to that. But it still happens at my new property. It irks me. We're not a rest stop on the interstate. We're a hotel. Obligatory. This wasn't today. So my 22F boyfriend, 24M, and I have been doing long distance for a long time, so basically a big old dry spell. When quarantine suddenly moved me back to my hometown, it was some good news for me in my droughted regions. When we first saw each other, we got to the point pretty fast. I guess so fast that I left my phone on the bed. Well, my mom must have called me, but I was kinda distracted by a thing or 3, so I missed it. Vape, I guess in the heat of the moment, someone's body part must have slid over the screen of my phone and swiped the missed call notification. Without either of us knowing, my phone was quietly calling my mom while the 2 of us were banging it out. Now I am already pretty vocal in bed, we hadn't had sex in months, and we were reaching the grand finale. So I wouldn't exactly say it was ideal timing. Sometime after mission accomplished, I checked my phone and realized I was on a call with my mom. I immediately hung up. I had no idea, and still don't know, exactly how or when it all happened. But the call was 7 minutes long, so I knew it happened while the missile was being launched. I called my mom back and she answered this time and I said, "Oh sorry, I butt dialed you and left a long blank message, but was just calling you back." And by dumb luck, she said she's driving home from work and calling people, and was on the other line when I called her back. After talking for a bit, I rushed home to get back before her. When she arrived, I asked if I could borrow her phone. I sometimes do this to look at pictures, etc., and I went to her voicemails. Thankfully, my voicemail of 7 minutes still had the little blue dot next to it, meaning she never listened to it. I deleted it, sent myself some cute pictures of my dogs, and gave her phone back. About a month ago, I told her what happened and we laughed about it. My mom's pretty chill, but I'd rather her not hear that. I have never again left my phone on the bed while doing the dirty and I'd recommend the same. TLDR, I called my mom and left a 7 minutes voicemail while I was having loud sex. I deleted it off her phone before she heard it, but eventually told her and we laugh about it now. As the title says, I took 2 tabs of some weak acid and was drawing and listening to music in my room. It was about 11 p.m. I notice my phone is about to die, so I go outside to my car, where I left my phone charger after work. On the way I decided to smoke a joint as the LSD hadn't really kicked in yet. Just as I get to my car I realize I left my keys inside. My car is about 20 feet from my house as I didn't bother to put on shoes. You can see what is about to happen. As I am turning to go back into the house I step on something slimy and then I feel 2 flashes of pain in my foot. I look down to see a copperhead. I start freaking out and rush inside and call EMS. The LSD is really starting to kick in now. So when they got there I was already tripping. They said my sister who was home at the time could take me to the ER. So until 7:30 the next morning I am alone in the ER tripping my balls off, terrified of the snake bites. I'm all good now, but it was one of the most terrifying yet cool experiences. It was really cool to see the hustle and bustle of the hospital. TLDR, got bit by a snake while tripping. Edit, to make more sense. I was at a restaurant with a few of my buds a year or so ago. I don't usually put any effort into the way I dress, so I was just wearing a plain blue shirt and dark pants, which was of course very similar to the uniforms of the waitstaff. I drank one too many waters and had to go to the bathroom. On my way back, I heard a loud "Excuse me, sir," that seemed to be directed at me. Since I have autism, and find interactions difficult, I hate confrontations. So my plan was to just ignore it and go sit back down. As I turned a corner, I felt a firm hand touch me on my back, which startled me and forced me to turn around. This Karen just started telling me her order, like she thought that I was a waiter, and it was just super weird and awkward. I tried to make it as clear as possible that I don't work there, but she wasn't easily convinced. She just got belligerent at this point and started making a scene, yelling, and I'm pretty sure she said the N-word. I was pretty shook since this is like my worst case scenario and I didn't know what else to do but stand there in shock. I completely forgot about my friends or what I was doing, I just wanted to get out of there so badly. A manager came over and asked the lady what was wrong. She then falsely claimed that I had assaulted her, which for some reason the manager seemed to believe. He told us both to wait there for the police to come so they could sort out what happened. Luckily, there were security cameras at the restaurant and by the time the police got there the manager had already looked at it and let them know I hadn't done anything wrong. They still listened to what Karen had to say but they immediately knew she was completely lying. Afterwards, they explained to me that I was free to sit down and enjoy my meal, and I could press charges if I wanted to since the woman gave a false police report and assaulted me. I declined, since I didn't really care much to punish anyone, I just wanted to end the embarrassment. I still didn't really enjoy that meal much because everyone kept looking at me and the whole thing was embarrassing. I am definitely going to wear different clothes next time I go there. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his 2 sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones, lol. I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, rather that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. So at my job there are different teams who work the different departments. I don't have the best relationship with some of my coworkers from a specific other department. To make a long story shorter, they act like they know everything, but actually they constantly mess up and then blame others. The thing is, both my team and theirs use the company safe to put away our tills and such. The different departments also have different shelves where they need to put their stuff in the safe, because that's the most convenient. So today, my least favorite co-workers from the other team come in to put their tills and stuff in the safe while I'm still working. Then they go home. At the end of my shift, I go to put away my till and keys in the safe. And what do I see? They had put all their stuff in the wrong place, my team's shelf. So I had to replace their tills and keys to where they belong, before I could put away my own. This is where I get petty. I know they are the ones opening tomorrow morning. So I decided that since I had to spend extra time cleaning up after them, they can spend some extra time searching for their keys tomorrow morning when they come in. So I hid their keys at the back of their shelf, behind a bunch of their tills. Not a big revenge, but the thought of them going through a little extra trouble tomorrow put a smile on my face. So this Kavina is a peculiar breed. She appears to have been involved in a freak accident that removed all common sense/basic understanding from her mind. The title is one of many famous ideas she maintains to this day. What makes her stand out from the crowd is her ability to maintain her opinion even in the face of irrefutable evidence. Here are some of her best. 1. Ireland is a myth. Kavina believes Ireland is made up and a conspiracy theory because potatoes come from the store, not disgusting mud. She is British and we both live in Britain, however I am Irish. I showed her my Irish passport and photos of me in Ireland, yet she still thinks it's photoshopped. 2. 3 months ago I caught Kavina crying. I asked her what's wrong and she said she didn't have long to live. I obviously asked her to elaborate and she said she was giving herself a tattoo with a highlighter and a needle and was told she would get ink poisoning. She ended up going home and wrote a will on her Instagram story. She lived. 3. Kavina had a huge crush on a guy we both knew. She decided to ask him out because, hey, Kevin/Kevins deserve love too. She decided to message him on Instagram so if it backfired she could say her friend sent the message, her words not mine. She accidentally found the wrong account of a guy with the same name. A married guy. Kavina refuses to accept it was the wrong person and messaged them every day until she was blocked. 4. Kavina is terrified that if there is nuclear war the wind might blow the missile the wrong way and hit us and that the Trident submarines might sail under a country. Yes, she believes that you can go under a country as there isn't anything underneath the land. 5. She refuses to believe that London is in the southeast of England because when she went there the sat-nav pointed forwards. 6. She believes Northern Ireland shares a border with England and when shown proof proclaimed the maps are all drawn wrong. 7. She doesn't understand how sex offenders get caught as they could just lie about their age in court and get away with it. She doesn't know what a birth certificate is and says she never got one. 8. She greeted a French exchange student with bad German and shouted speak English or find a new job in France at a French ice cream man. 9. Kavina is a vegetarian, or so she says, but allows herself to eat pork, chicken and beef as they don't count. She laughed at me when I said gelatin is from cows and is in Haribos and said that Haribos come from factories, dummy. She also doesn't realize cows live after being milked and assumed they cut the cow open and there was just a bit of it called milk. That's all I can think of right now. Thanks for reading and hope you have a nice day. This story comes from a few years ago when I was working as a server at a popular, cheap chain restaurant in Ohio. Sunday lunches were always extremely busy due to the after-church crowd. We were also running a Children Eat Free special with the purchase of 2 adult meals. A family comes in and are seated in my packed section. I was a good server, but there are limits when your section is packed. I serve them, went about my business and then get called over to their table. There's a hair in my husband's food. The woman says, pointing at her husband's empty plate with one single curly black hair. Can you get a manager? I say sure because I don't have time for this, nor am I paid enough. I ask for a manager but they send out one of our line cooks, who used to be a manager. He was a middle-aged, balding black man who took no stupidity. The woman points out the hair, and the line cook replies that everyone cooking that day is bald, and they were, and that we have no servers with curly black hair. That's not good enough for the woman who then asks what will he do for her. He says he can't do anything as her husband already ate his entire meal. But he says he will refund it, all 5.00 worth. Don't stand there looking stupid, give me a full refund. She says. He shrugs and says no can do. He can refund the one meal and that's it. She huffs a bit but drops it. I continue with my busy section and then go to check out them out. I comp her husband's meal but that isn't enough for her. She starts berating us and causing a scene so I comp her meal. Well, that cancels out the Children Eat Free so I tell her the 4 total. She refuses to pay and I seek out my manager who initially refused to deal with her. Just comp it and get her out. Okay, so I comp all her meals. She asks for the corporate phone number and I print off a receipt showing her comped meals and circle the number. Have a nice day. I say, having wasted an hour and receiving no tip. Absolutely ridiculous. Someone in line says, and I looked over gratefully, thinking I'm going to be vilified. But no one should have to pay for a meal like that. Despite this rude family, the other patrons in my section took pity on me and tipped well. I'm making over a 200 purchase like I do every week, but God help you if I don't get that 1.50 off my eggs with my rewards number. With the rewards program at my store, they get discounts on certain things but they usually seem most concerned about the eggs. Percentage-wise that's what they save most on. Every day there's at least 1 or 2 customers that after they type in their rewards number they'll ask, did I get the egg discount? And they'll ask with the tone of a parent who's worried that their kid who went out late hasn't texted them back after 5 hours. You shop here every week, you always get the egg discount and you're also spending over 100. Like not getting that 1.50 off is gonna bankrupt you. So I work at a small office for a construction company. I have one coworker that is a grandma and due to some parental issues, she is now taking care of her 2 youngest granddaughters, ages 7 and 8. She doesn't really have money so she can't pay for a babysitter to watch the girls as she's working her 8 to 5 job. There is also the issue of COVID-19 right now, so having a stranger come into your house for long periods of time and be around kids is not really a good idea. Luckily, for her, the boss is okay with the girls being in the office as long as they don't bother anyone from working and be quiet. Over the time, I've slowly went from being grandma's co-worker to being a babysitter. This is how it starts. The girls did that at first, until one of their tablets broke down and stopped working. Then, they would fight over the other tablet and would whine and tattle to the closest adult there, usually me. So to stop this I brought my tablet just so that they could watch Disney+. It worked, until my tablet ran out of power. Then, whoever had that tablet would start to come up to me and say I'm bored. They bring a backpack full of colors, coloring books, toys, etc. so I know that they aren't bored, they just want a tablet. I would then have to list off things for them to do, so that I could go back to work. After a while, I've learned how my coworker has been parenting them and when the girls do something, then I just follow what my coworker tells them to do. For example, the girls have a towel and toothbrushes and toothpaste in the girls' bathroom. They are told that they have to wash their face, hands, and teeth after eating lunch. The girls would try to get away with this and go straight back to the tablets after eating, so I would have to remind them as to subtly tell them that they can't disobey their grandma. Now, I just have to raise an eyebrow and they listen. I really was fed up with all of this, especially when my coworker and I would usually be the only ones in the office, but I didn't really say anything because I know that my coworker can't really do anything to keep them home and they are kids who need to be loud and run around and all that. But, I finally realized how much my coworker was taking advantage of me when she said, "Wow. You're the cheapest babysitter. All I have to do is just pay for your lunch." She not only said this straight to my face, but also in front of the girls who now believe that I am their babysitter. Now if there are any problems, from an untied shoe to a fight over who can get what, the girls go to me first before their grandma. So this happened years ago, when I was 11 and significantly overweight, and my brother was 14. My family and I were going home from a trip to visit my uncle, aunt, and cousins in City A. City A has this delicacy, a candy that is made from buffalo milk, that we absolutely love. We five could usually finish a box in a day. Naturally, we bought tons of it to bring home. On the drive home, I was sat in the very back and my brother and sister were in the middle row of seats. We were eating these candies, but my brother was passing them to me one by one as opposed to giving me the box to grab a couple so I wouldn't be bothering him as much. I asked my sister to just give me the box, but my brother protested, saying, "Don't, she'll just finish it all in 10 seconds. I was infuriated by this insult, so guess what I did? I complied and finished the whole box before giving it back to them. My parents were snickering among themselves, and my brother was seething with anger. I, on the other hand, was happy and full. Firstly, just to clarify, me and my friend were doing night shifts for a production at school, setting up the stage etc. for the production later in the month. There are 2 janitors helping us with the setting up, one of which went home for the night, both of which have a key to a closet, one of the usual school closets surrounded by rumors of have bodies of children hidden inside. It just has the security monitors and broomstick in. The security cameras are always turned off and are just for show. I needed the bathroom, so being a wuss me and my friend went to the restrooms, heading past the closet door as we went. It was marginally open, something that is not ordinary, but we ignored it. We carried on thinking nothing of it. I greeted my friend as I came out the stall and noticed another not ordinary thing. The security camera outside the toilets was on. Being a veteran of the school, I knew it was something to do with the open closet. Maybe the janitor turned the cameras on? It was a night shift after all, it wasn't like them though. We headed back to the hall to finish for the night, again passing the closet door as we went. We asked the janitor if he knew anything about the open door. He knew nothing about it. He said he would ask the other janitor in the morning. We finished for the night, leaving him to lock the closet and the gates we left from. The next day was pouring with rain. This time both janitors were there, agreeing that neither had used the closet in well over a week. My friend and I, being suspicious, did the same thing as we did the previous day and checked the door as we went down the hall toward the restrooms. This time, the door was wide open. A wet umbrella hung dismally from the center chair, surrounded by 3 monitors, all turned on, controlling the security cameras. I sent my friend to tell the janitors. I stayed behind. I looked at the room a bit more. The window to the left of the chair was open. It was small, but just large enough to fit someone of small stature through it. After a while the janitors came, saw the umbrella, and called the police after realizing that no one but them could enter the room. The umbrella did not belong to any of us. A week passed and I was freaked out by the incident. I barely got sleep at all. The police investigation told the school that someone did in fact use the window to get into the closet room, and most likely used the monitors to check who was in the building. They did not find the closet man or his motives in the school. So, creepy closet man, let's not meet. I am 14. I am a certified referee in my state. I know the rules as I've played by them my whole life along with taking the officiating classes. At our park district, no headers for ages below 11. But in U12, it is up to the referee's discretion. So if it's a small tap it's okay. That is exactly what happens. So the coach behind me screams at the top of his lungs there are no headers in U12 5 to 16 times. I ignore him. Though I could eject him. It was last game of the season and I didn't care. After a bit of yelling, he says fine, go duck yourself then, which I turn and tell at him for saying in front of you 11 kids. I wish I sent him away or ended the match. Sadly I didn't do much and my partner is a longtime referee, officiated my matches as I grew up, and he is deaf. So he has no idea what happened. The person who runs Park District in my area has been informed and is taking action. Scene: grocery store in Florida a little over a year ago. It was a nice spring morning at the grocery store I worked at. I was cashiering that day. A customer and her husband came through my line. My store was by the beach, so we would get many people coming here on vacation to stock up the rental. Started off with the usual small talk and then the customer mentions they were on vacation from Oklahoma. "Where from in Oklahoma?" I asked. "Norman." I say, "Oh, my cousin used to live in Norman, but he now lives in OKC." I mention that he also works at, insert location here. The customer mentions that she works there too. "What's your cousin's name?" I told her his name. "Oh, I know him. He's my IT guy." She asked me if she could take a picture of me to send to my cousin. I told her that I didn't have a problem with it. "I'm going to ask him, do you know this girl?" I later told my cousin that I ran into his co-worker and he thought it was a funny coincidence. I mean, what are the odds?